Roger Bannister was an English med student at Oxford, and he had a pastime for running. Running short distances, or 100-meter, or all those distances from there, and kind of longer, just in a few miles or anything like that. And he had a mind to try something which at the time most everyone said would kill him. And it was to try and break the 4-minute mile. Up until that point, no one else had done it under 4 minutes. And then there was this belief that even if you were able to succeed, the stress and, just damage you would do to your body would likely kill you from there. But he stuck with it. He continued to train, and despite everyone, a number of people talking against it, trying to push him to, go another way. You have so much of your life, you have a fiance, you have family, you have friends, you have all this other stuff. Why bother with wasting your time doing the impossible? And even if you do achieve it, it will likely kill you from here. And so this is the barrier that he was looking at coming against in his life. And so he continued to train until eventually he did, of course, break the 4-minute mile. He did it basically as close as you can get. It was 3.59, 5 or something like that, to where he barely made it, but he made it. And the interesting thing is, once he did this, he of course didn't die, but once he did it, within about 6 months, somebody else beat his time. And what this kind of demonstrates is this idea of this invisible barrier. Once everyone kind of sees this as there is no, going past this barrier, it's really difficult. But once you break through, what we're going to see is you see a lot of new things, a lot of opportunity coming through here. And this is what I kind of see a little bit of this going on into play as we're looking at the genres for fantasy and sci-fi from here. Because what we end up with is we're kind of reaching, it feels like, the limit. I don't actually believe this is the limit, but this is the limit of everyone's current storytelling in this aspect, where they're telling a lot of the same stories. Now, this is not a bad thing per se, or anything like that. Nobody's going to complain about having too many Lord of the Rings. Nobody's going to complain about having too many stories like Dune or Interstellar or anything like that. But you do get what I'm talking about, where fantasy, what we have is wow, gee, daring, aren't we? We have the story with dragons and magic and kingdoms and, all this stuff. You have all this very formulaic, and you can play within this world, but here's the thing. Everybody does love it. So there is also an idea of why push beyond it. But you do get the idea where there is very much kind of a set framework within the fantasy genre. And this is where we see a lot of stories kind of fall into play from here. The same thing is with sci-fi, where we're kind of having a harder time reaching what's beyond the edge of sci-fi. So what you have is you'll have, ships, we'll have spaceships, we'll have, light speed travel, anything like this. We'll have robots, we'll have aliens. All of this is going into play, but still you kind of see a lot of the same aspects come into play for different sci-fi things. You just see it's harder once you get to this, okay, once we have light speed, what's beyond light speed? Once you have intergalactic, intergalactic spaceships, what's beyond that? Once you have robots, what happens? And exploring these, once you have these, is really cool. And this is awesome. This is something nobody's going to complain again if you have more of these stories. But it is interesting that we've kind of seemingly hit a barrier, or a comfort zone, maybe a better a name for it, because everyone's very comfortable telling stories in this, but it doesn't mean that anyone's pushing beyond this. Now, we have started to see this barrier begin to get broken a little bit, and kind of things pushing beyond it. One of them is, I think, Jeff Vanderveen's Annihilation series. That was one where I think it hit the stage and everyone was kind of blown away with it. I absolutely love the series from there. But you can kind of see this really begin to push it. You can also see Arrival, the other A. I don't know how to spell anything, so we're just going to call that Arrival. The other sci-fi story that starts with an A that everyone loves, where you kind of see it really begin to push this bridge of what is intelligence mean when you apply it to different species. What does intelligence and language and all of this mean when you apply it to different worlds apart from us? And this question gets really, really strange. But you get the idea what I'm talking about, where a lot of the planets kind of all feel the same. You know, there's a lot of people really, really copied Star Wars when it comes to all of their alien design. The other thing is, why all the humanoids, like, you know, look like a person, but they're blue or green or something like that. Like, they're more or less just a cut and carbon copy place for a regular human, but dressed up differently from here. Again, this is a comfort zone. There's nothing necessarily bad about this, but the question is do you want your story to push the distance, push beyond that? And this is where we come to our story we're talking about today.
Like a puzzle. Nothing really makes sense in the way we know it.
Ursula, what is happening to me?
I don't know.
And we're talking about Scavenger's Reign, which is a HBO TV show, sci-fi TV show, and it really tries to push this barrier kind of beyond what you would normally expect. It is really, the goal of this, kind of like Annihilation, is really to try and create something utterly and truly alien. And this is alien, not necessarily just, saying, hey, we got this guy, which you may have seen before with like this, and then, this, and then this. And then, the difference between this is one version is blue, and one is green, and one is red. And these are aliens of different planets. And they live on the red planet, and the blue planet, and the green planet, or anything like that. No, what we're talking about is something really, really different. Like, we have an ecosystem with gravity and air, oxygen, and, the plants do this, birds do this. These are what we have, insects. What if you went to a planet where it had something completely different from here? And this is the same thing, I remember you take like, we're going to create an alien by taking two species that, look like this, and we're just going to, sort of combo them together and, and make a new species or something along those lines, which is not really it depends on what you want. If you want to push the veil of what at the limits of sci-fi and do something new, this is what it's going to take from here. So to get you into the world, it's a world heavily artistic. It's absolutely beautiful, the landscape. And the story itself is beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Because what you have is it's trying to make you understand just how fragile we are in this alien landscape. It's kind of like playing a futuristic version of Oregon Trail where you're constantly dying from, sci-fi dysentery from there. And it's just literally every time you look around to another thing, something's trying to kill you and you're completely outnumbered, outgunned. Everything else is beyond you. And this is where the story is really trying to craft this isolation, this idea of isolation in this alien world, and really force people to interact with the world in a way they wouldn't normally, because they would just interact with it through the use of technology. If you have robots that can explore a planet, why would you ever explore it yourself from here? But in the story of Scavenger's Reign, we're introduced to kind of this command center area, which is talking about this ship, the Demeter 227. And it disappeared. Nobody knows what happens to it. And they're talking about it, and it's very much this kind of somber, matter-of-fact way of talking about it, where it's just kind of like, well, there's one character who's like, damn, that sucks. That's horrible. And he's genuine, but it's like, what do you want me to do about it? And they tell corporate, and corporate says, too expensive, basically, or that's the expectation. From there, that, they're not going to do anything about going after the ship. It's kind of, it's a little bit past saving at this point. And so what we then follow is, and again, this is the idea of what's going for, this idea of isolation, and ingratiating in this alien world. And in order to do that, we have to cut people off from the comfort of technology and what they're used to from here. And so what we've got is, then we've got all these different stories. We've got 3 different stories that it follows, and each of these people are staying in their little pods from here. And so they have each of these different ones. And so in kind of group 1 over here, we have Sam and Ursula trying to use this, and we're really introduced to kind of this bizarre, kind of foreign alien technology where they're using these wire vines and stuff like this. And Sam is inside this beast to get these kind of globules things that kind of emit light so they can use it. But he's like kind of going around in the muck and saliva of these different creatures. And so they're really trying to catch you off balance. But the interesting thing that they're doing with these characters is everyone acts like it's just your average day. It's just kind of monotonous, terrifying monotonous, where they're just going around their normal, every average day. No one's reacting. Nobody's, everything is kind of just makes sense from here. It's like, well, of course, we need light, so we're going to do this. We need that, so we're going to go do this. You have this, it's very much just this mundane thing. And what the authors are trying to do is they're trying to contrast this, where you have something utterly alien, but then the characters are just like, yeah, so what? There's this idea of this. They're putting both of these side by side to really kind of throw the audience off kilter, because now we're like, what do we do? Is this normal? Is this not? And we're trying to figure out and piece this all together from here. And so this is them. And they're using this technology to try and communicate with this, to communicate with the Demeter, which is circling around, kind of in orbit from the planet. And all the people are stuck in, cryostasis from there, and they're trying to get the ship back down so they can get rescued. Because, presumably at this point, you see in the beginning, Ursula's kind of checking off tallies from here. They've been here a while. They've been here a long time. And they're kind of, they've been able to live off supplies and everything like here, but they're trying to get rescued. They want to survive. They want to make it out. The next group we kind of follow is this group. It's 2. It's Avi and Levi. Avi is the human. Levi is this robot that works for her. And this one was great. I really love this aspect where they're really taking all of this known world. Again, there's this idea of the known world. And this is where you are safe. This is where you understand, what does what, the impact and effect of different things really makes sense and everything like that. And so what do we know? We know Levi's a robot. This is what robots do. But then you see this kind of growing, sort of yellow organism over the PCB, over the circuit board for Levi, and it starts doing strange things presumably to it. So what it's doing is it's trying to take this idea of the known world and erase that slowly. So you're throwing the audience and throwing your main characters into this constant state of unknown as they're trying to figure out the new rules of the world. And it just keeps everyone on edge and everything like that. And it's just this really cool way to manipulate and put the audience on edge and unease. You're trying to make the audience uneasy. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to fight off, Avi and Levi are trying to fight off from these local creatures, and they're trying to find, and they're using the technology, and they're using this in just such a matter-of-fact way. And this is where they're trying to really push the bounds of what's truly alien. You know, what are these creatures? What do they want? What do you do from here? And this really, really bizarre blend, because there's something that they really exemplify in this world, is that the concept of evil doesn't really exist in nature. It's just survival from here. And I remember, and it's really hard to kind of wrap your head around this, especially when you have, a human coming up next to some sort of creature. And it's hard not to think of these moralistic terms, because you're trying to think of, this mountain lion is evil, or this lion is evil for, hunting after, children, or hunting after, the old and the sick, or anything like that. But it's all just about survival from here. I remember watching, there was this section of a David Attenborough documentary where you have these birds, and they're going and flying far distances to go capture fish, because these birds are fishermen. They got to bring the fish back to their families. They got to bring it back to their mates and their babies and everything like that. And it's this constant struggle in order to do that, because it's an exhausting journey to go and catch the fish. And then you've got to come back. But then while you're coming back, there are these other birds that are waiting on you to pounce and steal the fish from there. And if they succeed, they're doing it to survive. But it's just this unfair situation where you're watching these birds who've worked so hard trying to keep their families alive are getting preyed upon by these other birds, which these other birds seemingly would rather the fish fall back into the ocean and nobody gets to eat, rather than eat from there, because they're bigger. They can bully the other birds. And so it's just this really, really cruel situation. But you understand and you realize that they're just trying to survive. Both of these different creatures both of these birds are just trying to survive. And so it's this weird and kind of dark juxtaposition where you're trying to see this horrific act where, hey, if this bird succeeds in keeping this other bird from feeding his family, the family will die. And it's just this brutal reality, but this is survival. This is nature. This is what it means. And this is kind of the rule the same thing you see apply out in this world of Scavenger's Reign, because this is what it is. It's the Scavenger's world, and you can kind of see it from what, the humans are even using this world to their own advantage, trying to manipulate it from here. But we're sitting on the outside watching this, and it's just this really uncomfortable horror as some of these creatures are going about their normal life. And so our third path and character that we follow is a character named Kamen, and he's stuck in one of these pods, and he can't get out, and he's actually going nuts from here, just due to the isolation and everything like that. And we kind of see this weird gecko-like creature. This is come to be called a hollow, I found out. I just was going to call them creepy gecko guys. But you can see these geckos, and you kind of see them go through as they're wandering around in their habitat, and they use this black ooze, this creepy black ooze, to manipulate and mind control these other creatures to do their bidding. You can kind of see that these are telekinetic creatures. They have all of these strange abilities, and it's just this weird, bizarre scene where one of these creatures takes control of these little octopus inchworm sort of things from here. And this is the other thing. It's hard for me to describe these creatures, which again goes to show how alien these creatures are, because what are they doing? They're trying to make it something utterly alien. So it's not like anything else. It's not octopus plus inchworm equals this. It's some weird, four-legged, tube creature that has these little bitty, we don't even know if it's alive necessarily. It could be more like a starfish or something, which I guess is still alive. But you think of starfish are almost as like part animal, part plant, part rock from there. So control these things, and it's just this really deeply unsettling and uncomfortable situation. But again, this is the world we're trying to create. We're trying to create this idea of isolation and danger and horror from here. And this is what we're building towards. Building. We're trying to introduce the characters and the audience into this world. And this is something that it just does so well with, is this question of, what do you do as you're exploring? What are you doing from here? What are you trying to convey? And this story is trying to convey this idea of horror this deeply unsettling world that's so utterly alien to us. And this is what they're trying to do. And so how do you do that? Well, okay, all right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take the known world and completely flip it on its head. But the other thing we're going to do is there's no safety. There's this, we're going to constantly be on the run. And so what we end up seeing is there's this great big storm that's approaching. And Sam and Ursula are running from the storm. They hide, and they see these weird sea creatures are kind of with these long tube like mouth neck things are on the beach, and they're with these, they have this long fleshy see-through tube thing, and they're sucking up their eggs to inside. There's this safety pouch from here, and they're kind of getting all the eggs, and their eggs are going in there, and they're able to float in the sea. And Ursula knows that, hey, we're probably not going to make it to safety because these rocks are beginning to slice us to pieces and everything like that. And so she catches a long ride. She's like, let's hide in these creatures. Let's go ahead and do it. Because, Sam initially in this other scene was getting those orb globule things from inside this, rhinoceros-looking beast. So this is not exactly a foreign concept, and they jump into these things, and they're kind of hiding there, and they're hiding there. And this is this idea. They're having to rely on these other alien creatures for survival, and it's this continual use, this idea of the scavengers. We use you, you use us, and this is kind of the dark aspect of it, because if the animals, the alien creatures did the same thing to the humans, it would be utterly horrifying. So it's this weird idea. And we have this where Sam and Ursula actually fail to contact the Demeter and burn up their battery. So they have to go and venture forth and find another battery. And they go out and they're doing this, and Ursula nearly ends up dying because she sees this plant-like creature or plant-like gas that, they're breathing in. They have these weird octopus on their faces to protect them from the fumes or whatever for down here. And the other thing that is kind of nice about this is they don't explain a whole lot. They don't spend really any time on exposition where they're like, remember how we found out how these gas masks worked and you nearly died, and that was a great story. It's just, here you go. And the audience automatically understands, you got to have this on here. Like, we understand completely you got to have this gas mask or else it's going to be no dice, no air. You're going to be in trouble. And so they put these on and they're going exploring. They go and get the battery. And then, Sam grabs these little balloon things and they float up out of this pit and up and out of here. And they just get out. And Ursula, she has issues with her mask. Her mask is giving out. Her mask is dying because it's a living creature. They're sacrificing these creatures for them as tools. And she breathes in the air and starts coughing and is unable to get out. And Sam, this is one thing that I really like. The tension between the characters is really this underplay. Sam is just like, hey, by the way, don't cough. Peace out. And he disappears and he leaves Ursula behind. Of course, he doesn't know how much danger she is, and he knows they need to get out of there now. But it's that he didn't really stop to check on her very, very much. So it's this real, very, this gray area of a situation from here. Ursula then gets over the coughing fit and is able to survive, but not until she starts hallucinating and seeing creatures and all of this stuff, and then she snaps out of it and then escapes as well. And it's just this it's so close to death. It's this just never ending, but this kind of just really, really slow creeping danger that they're living in. Again, it's like Sci-Fi Oregon Trail. You're constantly about to die of sci-fi dysentery. The slightest thing will kill you from here, and it's deeply unsettling for the audience from here because you're really not sure, because it's the other thing. You don't know what creatures will kill you, what is safe versus what will kill you. And it's just, you never really know. You never really know what's going to happen. So again, fast forward where they're kind of traveling back from here, and they're going into these little ocean pod things. I really, again, describing these things is actually surprisingly hard because they're really not like anything else. And so they go into these things and they're hanging down in this pod. And so what you have is the ocean water, and the little mouth is here, and there's that, and this is big kind of sack, and they're almost like jellyfish sort of creatures kind of floating from here, and here are the eggs. And you realize that actually these eggs are huge, and all of this is actually a big creature. These humans are not really that large. And then you see there are these other like arachnid beetle creatures that are showing up, and they're going down the tubes of other of these jellyfish, storage, gourd shaped creatures, and they're going down there, and you don't really know, it's menacing and it doesn't look good, and they're kind of climbing down, and this is just incredibly ominous because, again, what are they going to do? And then they come down and they're eating, and just blood, and it's just really, really brutal scene that starts playing out for Sam and Ursula as they're trapped down there. There's the storm up above. It's just this horrifying, asphyxiating tension that's just building as they're stuck here and they don't know how a way out. And then the beetle is coming down and coming down and coming down and coming down. And then one starts to come down their tube. And it's just this ominous thing. And the crazy thing is I didn't realize how big these things were supposed to be until it's down in the tube. And it's basically the size of a minivan. It's just this huge creature. It's just this beetle. And it starts eating. And then Sam's got a little tiny little knife, a little baby knife that he's trying to fight this creature off. And he gets knocked out and gets beat up and all this stuff. And then Ursula then finally gets up and it uses the sonic scream to kind of knock them both out, and then they're both going to fight, and it's this brutal, like just slow motion death that's awaiting for them, that's just so close to coming in and knocking them and just obliterating all of them. And they manage to fight the creature off. Ursula manages to stab it a few times after it starts sucking the blood from this wound with its mouth and teeth, and it's just this really darkly slow motion death, attempt at murder from here. But again, I'm using all this moralistic language, but it's never murder for these creatures. It's just survival from here. And it's this brutal, brutal world from here. They manage to kill it, and it's just this really, really insanely gory thing where they cut it open, and Ursula just starts going at it because she's trying to save her friend, and they're trying to stay alive because she knows that she's next. And it's just, the other thing is like, it's just the little baby, the little eggs that is in this pod that's keeping them safe. So you feel a kinship for this. But then this other parasite is showing up, just murdering them. And normally the parasites in our human world aren't big enough to do this. But this is able to do it. And it's absolutely brutal from here. And we get to see this. And this is the world of Scavenger's Reign. This is the world that the creators are trying to work through this. And it's just, they have done such a good job with creating this deeply, unsettling world from here. And this is something where, you'll have to figure out, is this show going to be for you? Because this is the thing that it's doing. It's this tension that it's building and building towards that's really not comfortable. It's not comfortable. It's not the known. It's breaking beyond this initial barrier of what we expect to be sci-fi, to be this, what does it mean to be something truly alien from here? And this is real. It's really, really pushing this edge for it. And this is where you can kind of see it from there. So I enjoyed it so far. I would say it was deeply unsettling, but I'm really curious and I really want to see what happens from here. And I'm looking to finish out the rest of the series. So, but yeah, if you guys would like to see more, or let me know what parts you guys thought were the most unsettling for this show, or your favorite scenes or anything like that, just put that in the comments below. And again, leave a like, and if you haven't subscribed, please do so. It really helps these smaller channels with the algorithm and everything like that. So, but yeah, I appreciate the view, and I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.